Yes, I've decided to do a video giving my thoughts on all the current, both Space Marine and Soul Auxilia formations currently in the game. Originally, I was planning to just do the ones in the main rulebook, as that's one I currently own. But I because there's a bunch of stuff going up for pre-order on Saturday, which this video should be coming out on Saturday or before Saturday, hopefully for some people. I think that some of the formations in the second book are actually relevant for people who might want to get into the game. But yeah, also I'm just using this website, which I don't have a URL in it. It's just, you can get there via Wikipedia, and it pretty much has everything in it. I do kind of like sites like this. It does mean even if you don't own all the books, you can still check stuff out and make future plans, or check if you even want to get a book. Like, yeah, so not completely opposed to essentially this compared to just owning stuff, but I do actually like owning stuff as well. I do like having a nice book. But yeah, to get started, we have Legion Demon Company, which is the basic infantry formation for Space Marines, which is kind of nice because they get all infantry units can get upgraded rhinos as dedicated transports, and which basically means you get essentially a separate detachment of rhinos that can carry that infantry unit, but also act entirely on their own. And I have a funny thing, they may not count towards breakpoints or casualties and stuff, but I'd need to double check that. And they also have Heart of a Legion, or basically means any non-infantry model in the formation that's on an objective with an infantry model from formation gets one more tactical strength. Yeah, so it's a good formation, it has nice special rules, and you basically can get a bit of everything. Like, there are some limitations, like you can't have light armor and air support, but you pretty much can have whatever you want in it. I don't think there's anything you can't get in it. Unless they add some new sort of option later on. The second Space Marine detachment we have is the Legion Garrison Force, which I have mixed feelings about. As it is now, essentially it lets you take a 1 Bastion slot in the Demon Company, you get 3, one of which is compulsory. And my sort of issue I have with this is there's not, like, you only really have Tarantulas and Dodero Dreadnoughts as your Bastion choices, and I don't really like Tarantulas in this specific formation because there's no way to forward deploy them, and you can't bring transports. If you can actually fit like 2 Tarantulas and a Rhino. So if you brought Tarantulas in this formation, you could move them up, drop them off, and let them do stuff. So you're basically limited to Doderos. So I think once they get potentially more Bastion units for Space Marines out, I think this would be a good formation. And then if the Rapiers with Bastion choices like the Auxilia ones are for some weird reason, I would hands down this would be great. I'd use this. It has no special rules, but it's effectively you get more Bastion choices, you get no transport options, but you don't have to worry about, you can have 2 artillery units. You also don't have to worry about choosing between artillery and heavy tanks, as you can have heavy tanks and artillery as well. And yeah, so you have most things, you just don't have transport, you don't have vanguard, you don't get light armor, which isn't any right now. So it's a bit like, I think one upside of this is if you wanted to bring the Dodero Dreadnoughts as like a allied detachment, you can bring them in this formation for 35 points less than this basic formation. If that 35 points is relevant, it's an option. Then the next one is the Armored Company, which is basically if you want to bring a bunch of tanks, here you go. It's actually pretty good in that regards. You have next, so you basically get the core 2 battle tanks and 1 heavy tank. But you can have essentially double up on that. It's optionals as well as some light armor, and there you can either choose between more heavy tanks or some air support. So no special rules, but just you want to bring lots of tanks, bring lots of tanks. Then the next one, which is the last one from the first book, is the Legion Aerial Assault, which is basically an infantry unit that has a requirement that anything that does not have a flyer special rule must begin the game embarked in a transport with a flyer rule, and you can take Storm Eagles and Thunderhawks as dedicated transports. So it's different. I like it because it's a very special. It does a thing and does it well. So if you want to do an entirely airdropped unit, you can. So it's kind of neat. You can't get any tank options, but that's fine. You can technically bring Dreadnoughts as support, and I think Dreadnoughts can fit in Thunderhawks. I think you can fit 4 Dreadnoughts in Thunderhawk. So that is an option. And then you do have the option of just bringing more aircraft as well. And potentially outside you could bring a Thunderhawk as support, and then bring, because essentially another thing about dedicated transports is they can only carry the unit, the detachment that they have the transports for. While, for example, if independent Thunderhawk can take 2 detachments in it, so long as they fit. And the same with like a transport detachment of like, let's say you bring like 8 Land Raiders, you can probably fit your entire compulsory detachment in those 1 transport options. Sweet. And then we have, this one's the one I actually wanted to do the second book stuff for. It's for the Legion Skyhunter Phalanx, which basically means it's almost all Vanguard detachments. All the compulsory ones have to be skimmers, so either jet bikes, land speeders, or the javelins, which I think are basically land speeders as well. And then you have 2 extra light armor choices in air support and 1 extra Vanguard. And all the basically the skimmers, the hover cavalry and stuff get outbank, which basically means they can come in from reserves on the sides of the boards. So what I like about this is if you buy just 1 box of the essentially Vanguard choices for Space Marines, which is with bikes, jet bikes, both land speeders, you can effectively make this detachment, filling your 4 compulsory choices, and then you put the regular bikes there, which is like 256 points, which by itself probably isn't ideal. And currently there is no light armor, so the detachment will probably be lacking a bit. If you can somehow either already have or can get access to any of the Spanish Marine flyers other than the Thunderhawks, because currently the Thunderhawks are the only things currently that's being reprinted, everything else is sort of waiting for new boxes. You could probably get like 2 boxes of these, bring some aircraft, and maybe a knight, and you could probably do an okay-ish 1000 point army, which you can expand on later with like light armor and stuff. So if for some reason you couldn't get any of the, for example, let's say the starter set goes out of stock again, you can't get any of the core sort of Space Marine stuff, this could be an option to just get started. Also, if you want to play White Scars, this is definitely an option, because they're kind of insane with this unit, this sort of formation. But yeah, you definitely wouldn't want to do like a full like 2000 point armor with just bikes and stuff. It would be funny and it would probably be effective, but you still probably want the options of light armor later on, which will probably be the next book, unfortunately. And then the final detachment for Space Marines is the drop pod assault, which basically it's infantry, sort of infantry core thing. It's basically you can only bring support and core units and 1 air support, and everything that doesn't have deep strike, so Terminators are fine just by themselves, has to have drop pods. So you put, yeah, essentially normal drop pods for your infantry, dreadnought drop pods for dreadnoughts, and yeah, plus you can also bring your support options. You can also bring like the Death Storm missile drop pods, which are kind of neat. So yeah, I think I'm kind of tempted by this as well as an army, but I also don't really like how drop pods come 4 in a box. So I might just get 4 and put them in a normal, as a normal just demi company transport detachment. But yeah, so that is all the Space Marine formations, and now we have Solar Auxilia ones. So the starting one is basically the Auxilia Super Cohort, which is basically like the Legion Demi Company. It's effectively a combined arms, but it's a core infantry corps that can do combined arms, and there's a bunch of different options. Yeah, it has no real special rules other than that the compulsory core and core units have to be las rifles, which doesn't really change much, as currently they're the only ones we have for them, which we'll come to a bit later. But yeah, I think decent, it's cheap as well, it's a good way to just bring bodies on, because I think the actual minimum requirements points-wise is like 110 points, just for like the cheapest options you have here. So if you wanted to bring other stuff as well, like, it's a good, yeah, it's not bad. No special rules, but again, it's just the core thing with a bunch of options, so why not? Then you have the Armored Company, which is basically the same as the Space Marine Armored Company. It's just essentially you want to bring tanks, you can bring tanks. You can't bring infantry like the same, which is the same as year one, because, yeah, so it's not really a good combined arms thing, but if you want to bring a bunch of tanks, bring a bunch of tanks. And they also give the option to make one of them a tank commander, which Solar Auxilia basically, in order to operate normally, they need to be, essentially, for most units, need to be within the command distance of a commander. Some units have exceptions, but yeah, it's fine. Then there is the Solar Auxilia Pioneer Company, which is effectively the equivalent to the Garrison Company, but better. It's effectively meant to be an offensive thing, and it does that pretty well, but it also is a good defensive thing, because all infantry units in this detached formation get infiltrate, which basically means they can be deployed anywhere on the board except for within like 8 of the opponent's deployment, or within like a certain distance of opponent's units. So you can basically have a bunch of dudes straight up in the middle of the board, which is great. And then the non-infantry units can basically do a forward deployment movement, which basically means they essentially make a free move at the start of the game. And so your core units are a storm section, which is really weird right now, because technically there is no core Valetari storm sections that only support. I think most people would probably be okay with people being like, okay, we're just running this support unit as a core. But then I think that's where things go weird with this core unit is, I'd feel weird bringing in extra units of Valetari as this core unit. But I think at some point we'll probably get Valetari with Volkite charges as a core unit, I think. We'll see. Yeah, so you get 2 bastions as your core, you don't get any extra bastions. But this is neat because you can bring tarantulas and have them halfway up the board already, and also your rapiers also count as bastion for Auxilia for some really weird reason. So you can bring some of them up, like some laser destroyers for deployed and stuff, and get a bunch of Vanguard as well. Tiny bit of support. They can have a lot of air support if you want, or some tanks. Yeah, which can also forward deploy. So you can bring like the Malcadors with the gigantic flamethrowers, and you forward deploy them a bit. So they basically probably only do one move and just start flamethrowing stuff. Kind of neat. Next up, so that's the last of the core rulebook ones. We have the Artillery Company, which is basically a bunch of artillery, an HQ choice, which is kind of, it makes sense, but it's also weird because it can't attach to artillery units because they're all vehicles. So I'm pretty sure they can only attach to infantry units. So you're just, on the downside, all of your infantry units, all your support units are infantry. So I think my current complaint about Solar Auxilia is they don't have any choice of support. So, because I think rapiers should have been support, but they're not. So yeah, you can bring some rapiers. So basically bring a bunch of basilisks, maybe some FUD guns, HQ and FUD guns. That's fine. And it does have special rules. So basically, they don't suffer the -1 to hit penalty when firing something they cannot see, which is kind of insane when you think about it. So just this as a way to bring just a bunch of Basilisk is insane. Because you basically have a couple of options. You either bring 12 in one unit, or like another thing, and just annihilate things, or you just bring 4 and 3 lots of 4, which is the same points. Because I think the core book units have like a detachment tax of 10 points for most of the things. So if you expand the size of a unit, it's actually cheaper than just buying a bunch of minimum size units. But then later on the second book, they've basically got rid of that, which in a way sort of makes sense. Both sides sort of make sense for simplicity, and also more detachment is actually better. But I guess they sort of figured out probably after they'd essentially gotten everything to print that maybe it's not a good idea to have discounts. Then again, half the time you don't really want big units. That can be very useful though. And then we also have a mechanized infantry subcohort, which is basically the same core as the normal infantry subcohort. But every infantry model has to be mounted Dracosans, which are basically slightly worse land raiders that can carry twice as many troops. So that, yeah, I definitely want to build on these. I think tomorrow morning I'm going to be pre-ordering box Dracosans just to do that. Because I've got enough infantry that I can basically do one of these, 2 Pioneer companies and 1 just standard infantry unit. Yeah, so we get 2 Vanguard options, air support and support as extras. Like, also, we don't have many Vanguard options right now. So I'm kind of, part of me thinks we might get the Valtari with Volkite chargers, the Valtari with rotor cannons, as well as both types of the light sentinels in another box. There's maybe 6 of each sentinels, and then essentially 8 stands of Volkite chargers and 4 stands of rotor cannons, and maybe next to a different looking HQ. Which could be neat, actually. But that's probably a long way off if we do see that. Because a lot of the units do just take a ton of Vanguard slots. Which, in a way, with the Sentinels, you can just bring them in 2. So every box you can technically make 2 Vanguard choices. Yeah, and then the last one here is the Solar Auxilia Super Heavy Company, which is basically, it's like the Armored Company, but you want to bring lots of Bane Blades. So yeah, it has the tank command upgrade, and then also, essentially, they have a special rule that gives them more tactical strength. If 2 different detachments, well no, it's models, so 1 detachment with 2 in it gets +1 technical strength for an rise next to objective. That's kind of neat. And yeah, this one's something you theoretically could, I think Bane Blades might be out of stock, I'm not entirely sure, but because the next lot of Super Heavies is going to pre-order, you can theoretically buy 2 of those boxes and make one of these. It's not a huge amount of points though, because the Solar Auxilia heavy tank boxes are like 200 points each. Because there's only 2 in a box and 100 points. So not the most points effective box. But yeah, it's not too bad, because they're sort of below average when it comes to like the non-transport boxes. So I find like 250 points is about average. Yeah, so that is everything covered here. That was just my thoughts. I haven't used all of these, which I definitely, some of them I want to actually kind of like, yeah, I definitely want to use this, others like, yeah, maybe not. But yeah, so hopefully people will see this before pre-orders on Saturday, and maybe if they want to make decisions based on this, they can. But yeah, thanks for watching everyone, and I will see you all next time. I think I might just, yeah, I think my next video is going to be me going over my plans for my armies. But yeah, goodbye everyone.